Hello everybody and welcome back to Mining Modern. I'm Corbin Hosler, as always with Cool Stuff Inc. And this week we have a really sweet deck. It's Ninjas! Modern Ninjas. This list was making the rounds recently at 5.0 to Magic Online League, and it is everything that is neat about Modern. Alright, look at this. Changeling Outcast. Are you kidding me? 1/1 for 1. It can't be blocked. You can't block. It's a Changeling. That's it. But you know what it does? It sure works for all these ninjutsu creatures. So if you know the ninjutsu mechanic for ninjas, this is what it does. You can return an unblocked creature you control to your hand and put this creature onto the battlefield tapped and attacking. So you get things like Ingenious Infiltrator. You get to draw cards when your ninjas deal damage. You get stuff like Fallen Shinobi that allows you to exile cards and then play cards from your opponents. This one is insane. Ninja of the Deep Hours. This one, when it draws a card, or whenever it deals damage, you get to draw a card. Mist-Syndicate Naga. When it deals damage to a player, create a copy of it. This deck has so much going for it. So, those are the ninjutsu creatures. How do we make sure that they get through? Well, you saw the Changeling Outcast. We also have Faerie Seer. This is a sweet one, a 1/1 for 1 flyer, scries 2, reasonable in the late game because of the scry, always good on turn 1, perfect to pick up with your ninjutsu. Spectral Sailor, also a good card. This is probably one of the weaker ones, but it's another 1/1 flyer for 1. It has flash. It can draw you cards. It's got a lot going for it. And here's probably the one that is certainly the best to pick up, Spellstutter Sprite. Again, this is a fairy, not a wizard, but the fairies set him up and the wizards knock him out. When it enters the battlefield, Spellstutter Sprite counters a spell with converted mana cost X or less, where X is the number of fairies you control. So counter their spell, untap, attack with this, ninjutsu in one of these creatures, pick it back up, counter another spell. Pretty good all around. We round things out with a Snapcaster Mage and a Brazen Borrower here for generically good creatures. And then on the spell side, kind of what you expect. Fatal Push, Dismembers, the old Tyrant Scorn here. It's just got some flexibility to it. Mana leaks to counter, slow them down. And of course, Force of Negation when you just need a free counter magic. Pretty straightforward land base here. Blue-black stuff. Castle Vantress because we can. This got the mana base, what you'd expect to have a blue-black deck. Sideboard, try to cover our bases here. We got Graveyard Hate with Relic. We've got Collective Brutality for burn / combo decks, etc., where you want all those effects. Another Force. Thoughtseize for the combo decks or Tron or whatever. If you really just need to get at their hand, you can do so with Thoughtseize to slow them down while you set up your value engine with your creatures. And then Ceremonious Rejection, probably for Tron, but in general for any colorless deck you might run into. So there you go, everybody. It is Ninjas here on Mining Modern this week. I'm Corbin Hosler. From my quarantine to yours, thank you so much as always for watching. Let's jump into the games. Hey everybody, here we go with some more Ninjas. Well, some Ninjas anyways. I think I'm going to mulligan this one. This hand doesn't, we're on the draw. This hand doesn't do anything though. It's got a lot of lands in it. This hand I'm going to keep. I get to throw back a Fallen Shinobi. We've got a Changeling Outcast. I mean, I don't know if this hand's going to get there, but I think it was pretty reasonable mulligan the first 7, and this hand at the very least has a plan. Our opponent mulliganed as well. Interesting decision for them here. I'm going to assume they take the Changeling Outcast, and that's probably going to be a pretty easy call for them. Jund, I guess. Black-green rock, something like that we're up against here. It's pretty funny. Thoughtseize taking Changeling Outcast. That's what Modern is. Modern, the format that has just become more and more degenerate over the years, and now it's just an insane power level. Thoughtseize taking Changeling Outcast. All right, or the Fatal Push. If it's Jund, I'm sure they have their own removal spell for our Outcast. Yeah, Force of Negation, huh? Force of Negation, not a bad draw. Don't know yet if it's going to be great, but it's not bad by any means. Let's see what they go with here. It is the Goyf. Not a problem. Land? Never lucky, I tell you. Well, this was the risk we took with this hand. We had 2 draw steps to get there. We did not get there. We get to dismember this thing, and if we hit a land next turn, look, we're still actually in perfectly reasonable shape, I think, to win the game. I'm just going to dismember this thing now. I'm happy to let my opponent Thoughtseize us after that. You know, Mana Screw beats Thoughtseize fairly well if you then draw into lands. I don't see any reason to 2-for-1 ourselves forcing it. Just let them Thoughtseize, and they're going to take our Snapcaster Mage, I guess, and hope that after that we get to find things to hit with the Spellstutter Sprite and sort of have that be our game plan. We have to, I mean, the game plan involves drawing lands, right? The game plan is to hope that we can Spellstutter Sprite something next turn, hit land, Force of Negation, hit land, Fallen Shinobi. I mean, that's the plan to win the game here. Our opponent racing us down to 1 card. Well, that doesn't exactly do it, but it's not bad either. I think we have to bottom that and just go looking for lands. All right, well, we've got the 1 land, and this is a fairy, so this is actually going to be able to counter things 3 or less. So this is the big turn, right? This is the turn that's basically, I think, going to decide the game. If my opponent has a good play here, we're in trouble. If they don't, well, we're going to be in a good spot. You know, something like Liliana isn't even that good here. It's a creature, basically, that I don't want to see. And the old standby of Kitchen Finks would actually be pretty decent here. Scavenging Ooze. Okay, well, that is a good one. It's certainly a good one. Yeah, I don't really know that we're going to be able to win this game with that Scavenging Ooze in play. It's a rough one for sure. And yeah, this is painful. They get to eat. There's only 2 creatures that they can eat, I guess. So it's only a 4/4 for now, but you know, maybe this is the hit I was supposed to take. I was thinking I was going to block. Maybe this was the hit I was supposed to take. Okay. And again, maybe we'll get a counter at the Fatal Push with the Spellstutter Sprite and have 2 blockers. This game is all about Fallen Shinobi right now, right? We just need to dig for lands and hope that we survive long enough to Shinobi, and that's why I wanted to block, because we're 2 turns away from that, and we have to get lucky to get there. But look, when you mulligan to 6 and you get Mana Screwed and you get double Thoughtseized, yeah, kind of is what it is, right? You're going to have to draw well. Yeah, I guess I'll just take it. I definitely should have attacked with that Faerie Seer. I missed out on a point there. I don't know if it'll matter, but I certainly did miss it. Force of Negations can probably come out in sideboarding. They seem not incredible here. Yep. Down to 5. Our opponent's got nothing. Do we have anything? This was a turn where we needed to hit land, and we didn't. So I think we're just dead. Remember, the Changeling Outcast, not only is it unblockable, it also can't block. So priced into getting in there with it no matter what. But yeah, it's just really hard to see a way in which we win this game right now. We have to chump block the Scavenging Ooze. Go down to 1 from the Goyf. You know, I guess next turn we get in with both Outcasts. We have another chump. We just have to... We're just dead. Yep, Questing Beast will certainly finish us off. Alright, Force Negations are not good at all here. Thoughtseize is probably... Relics definitely are. And Thoughtseizes are probably okay too, honestly. You give this a shot. I mean, I like most of our deck against them. We just didn't quite get there in that one. This hand I'm in for, though. This hand is... it just has to find a payoff. We have plenty. We have, you know, ninjutsu enablers for days. And the nice part is we have the Faerie Seers to actually find the payoff for that. So we get to start right now and go try to find a 2-mana one. Even get it protected on top of our deck. Like this. So that it can't be Thoughtseized away. This is pretty nice. This is the kind of hand we want. All right, this hand looks great. My opponent probably sitting on removal. You know, the problem for them, though, is Fatal Push doesn't hit Ninja of the Deep Hours. That's a 4-drop, and we are going to get a draw card off of it. Very nice. All right, now we just need to find some lands, obviously, but That's what the Faerie Seer's for. So we're going places now. Cooking with gas, as they say. Outcast plus Faerie Seer next turn. Now, opponent could have stuff like Damnation. So what if they do, right? And this is just a disaster for them, actually, because I'm going to Fatal Push to Scavenge News. I'm going to draw another card off the Ninja of the Deep Hours after I get to see what that card is with Faerie Seer. So I get to go find a land, play the Outcast. Our opponent is just in for a world of hurt right now. This is... It turns out if you pack your deck full of 1-mana spells, and look, we have a hand of 6 1-mana spells, you can do a lot of stuff in any given turn. Assuming, of course, we find a land on top. A blue land. Black land, doesn't even matter, I guess. Spellstutter Sprite seems like exactly what I want after the Castle Vantress. Fatal Push. The Scoos. Wouldn't even be surprised to see a scoop out of our opponent, honestly, after we're done with this turn. This is a little bit of the dream right here. Now, Ninja of the Deep Hours, not Ingenious Infiltrator. It doesn't trigger off of any ninja, only off of itself. But in this case, it kind of works out all the same. This is a little bit of a wasted scry. We know we're going to keep what's on top, to an extent anyways. All right, well, we are committing to playing this game with 3 mana, but that's fine. Everything we want to do costs 1 or 2. 3 mana is actually enough to double spell every turn. Our opponent is honestly pretty much just dead. They need a board wipe, Flame Tendrils, something like that they could have here on 3 mana. Can't be Anger the Gods. It is just black-green rock, it looks like, not Jund. So no red spells, no Anger the Gods. So they're going to need a sweeper in black. Those do exist. The problem for them is that we're just going to refill very easily with the Changeling Outcast. I mean, heck, we already got value off the Ninja of the Deep Hours, right? Liliana is just not good here at all. Wow, that is rough for them. I mean, honestly, plussing might have been better. Now I get to kill the Liliana with the Faerie Seer and still draw a card off the Ninja. That's kind of the worst of all worlds if you're sitting in my opponent's seat right there. If their best play is Liliana, I feel pretty good in this game. If we can get a game 3, though. And again, how sick is it that Changeling Outcast is a shapeshifter? It's a fairy. We have 2 fairies in play, 3 with a Spellstutter Sprite. We can counter anything. We can't counter Damnation, I guess, right? But if they had Damnation, I just play a Spellstutter Sprite. Oh, they're gonna ninja. Okay, sure, whatever. Spellstutter Sprite that thing. It is exactly how we want our games to go. I mean, this was a really perfect hand. I think this showcases, and that's the point of this series, right? It's to showcase what decks can do, and no game showcases the power of this deck more than this one right here. This was disgusting. Now, who knows? Maybe my opponent's going to pull out the Flame Tendrils here and put us a little bit up against the wall, I guess. But even then, I think we'd still be pretty live to get back in the game. Finally, Revolt for Fatal Push. Ninja of the Deep Hour is gone. Unfortunately for them, they're in a lot of trouble still. Get in there with the team. Ninjutsu this in here for the Spellstutter Sprite. Now, if both of these get in, we could draw 2 cards. We could have hit the land to have the Spellstutter Sprite open, which should almost certainly end the game. And if they have a removal spell for this, I mean, this card is just, it's kind of the perfect card. It costs 4 mana. You have to have Revolt to get it with Fatal Push, but it also has Ninjutsu for 2. It's just so powerful. And if we don't hit land, you know what? We still have Dismember open. All right, it's an Abrupt Decay. And see, there you go. Cost 4. Cannot be Abrupt Decayed. This can, but I still get a draw card. That is not a winning trade for our opponent by any means. And now I can just Faerie Seer again to draw some lands next turn. Although Darkslick Shores, I have to say, is not really the land I want. I will keep one of them, just to guarantee that we do make a land drop one way or another. Our deck functions very well. I see why it's a 21 land deck. We function very well off of 3 mana. My opponent forced to get no value out of Maelstrom Pulse there, using it on the Infiltrator so we can't draw cards, even though we have double Faerie Seer in place. So, looks like we're going to end this game with the old Fairy beatdown. 1 at a time. 2 at a time, I guess. I'm just going to play the Outcast here. I could play I could hold up the Snapcaster, but just passing with the Spellstutter Sprite for 4 seems fairly unbeatable. We can even hit it. We can even counter a Damnation now. I think we will be off to game 3 very shortly. Our deck performed like the dream in this one. And my opponent's thinking it through. Collective Brutality, you say. Sure, I'll counter that. And they're actually using it just as a removal spell. They didn't even discard anything to it. But now they have 1 card in hand. Tireless Tracker. Tireless Tracker is a nice card, but it not going to get the job done here. I'm just going to go ahead and dismember this thing out of the way and proceed to win the game. I mean, technically, we only get in for 4 this turn. Our deck doesn't necessarily close quick, even though we're miles ahead, obviously. But I think it's all going to work out in the end. My opponent drawing 1 more card here to look for that wipe. That isn't it. On to game 3. On this draw, I think I want the Thoughtseizes, though, I gotta say. This is hard. Not easy. On the sideboarding side of things. I gotta say, the Brazen Borrower is kind of medium, but I don't want to cut it. I'd honestly rather cut the other Ninja, the Deep Hours, before I did that. Even though, I mean, I'm going to cut a Mist-Syndicate Naga, actually. Ninja the Deep Hours won us that last game, so I don't really want to cut it. This deck, though, this deck puts you in some horror. 21 lands is great when you only need 3 to work, but am I supposed to mulligan this hand? I'm going to. It's horrible. It feels terrible to do that, though. You're just 1 land away from winning. This hand would be just almost as good as our last one if we'd had another land. And I mean, look, here we go. I guess we're not going to even get a play. I mean, I have to keep this one. We'll ship the Mist-Syndicate Naga, I guess. I mean, we're on the draw. Maybe we can get lucky. 20 out of the 52 cards in our deck, so a little under probably about 40% to hit a land, 35 to 40%. A couple of them were Drowned Catacomb, so I guess 1 in 3 we get to have a untapped land here on turn 1 to play the Faerie Seer, so it's certainly, we've got a shot at winning, at our hand working the way we want it to. Our opponent mulliganed as well, by the way, so that's always good. But yeah, this is a game where we kind of have to hope that our deck works with us here. It's not even the end of the world if we don't hit on the first turn. We can Drowned Catacomb and turn 2 Faerie Seer, but yep. Not a bad draw by any means, but imagine if, you know, it was land on top of our deck and we get to go Faerie Seer, and then we draw that and we can have this Infiltrator out there and so on. So as it stands now, you know, maybe the Tarmogoyf isn't a problem, but we're pretty cold to something like a Liliana after that, and missing on the second turn in a row, well, that's when you just gotta chalk it up to bad luck. And I actually have to bottom both of these. I have to find lands. It's a rough way to lose. It is a rough way to go down in game 3, that's for sure. But hey, I guess in game 2 we had the perfect draw, so we had to balance it out with something, right? That's all right. Win or lose, our deck did some cool stuff this time around. And if we don't hit land after this, if we draw 2, bottom 2, draw again, and still don't find a second land, well, you know what? We were just never going to win the game. Magic Online wasn't on our side, and that's just the way it goes sometimes. I have to dismember the Dark Confidant. All right, there's the land. And it sucks to have to do this to the Dark Confidant. The Goyf is obviously the preferred target, but the Confidant's just going to give them too much value, obviously, as it does, you know. Turns out old Bob, not much of a player in Modern these days, but still pretty good when he does hit the battlefield in the right deck. So, all right. I mean, this was kind of the worst case scenario in terms of how our draw could shape out. That said, our opponent only has a 2-3 in play. We're at 14 life. All of that is somewhat reasonable. And if they don't just completely blow us out here, maybe we got a shot. You know, our hand has the problem is our hand just plays so poorly from behind. They're actually going to look at our hand and whiff here. They just threw away another Brutality for no reason. It's a 3-4 Tarmogoyf. I mean, they're down to one card in hand. We got a shot. We got a shot. Land? All right, that is a land. Now, the land doesn't actually do anything, but it means that we can Spellstutter Sprite in their instep and hit a land in Fallen Shinobi. I mean, that's the path to victory here. Our opponent could have sorcery speed removal, and we could beat it pretty easily. Now, we are on a very short clock. We're down to 8 from the Goyf. And our deck has, you know, the problem is with our deck in a situation like this is we do not play well from behind. We want to be attacking, and our deck, frankly, only kind of works if we're attacking and keeping our opponent off guard. You know, that said, though, if their last card is an instant speed removal, I think we can do that. Of course it is. Come on, game. You know what, though? If it's going to be instant speed removal, Assassin's Trophy is the one we want it to be, because now we can cast my Fallen Shinobi. And that is very relevant, because Fallen Shinobi is a blocker. My opponent has 6 power in play between the Treetop and the Tarmogoyf. They could have easily just drawn land here, and we could do something with this Fallen Shinobi. Neither of these are very good creatures to pay retail for, but... And the problem is at 8 life, we could just... I mean, if our opponent draws probably any business spell here, I think we're in trouble. You know, and them double blocking with the Treetop Village and the Goyf is... I mean, that's obviously good for us. That's what we want. But it's also kind of fine for them. You know, they get a trade 1-for-1, either a Treetop Village or a 2-mana Tarmogoyf for our 5-drop. That's, you know, that works out just fine for them as well. Do I have another choice, though? I guess I trade the Shinobi for the Goyf and then play the Ingenious Infiltrator, hoping that that means my opponent really can't fire up the Treetop Village. Chump block, huh? Okay, that one's a little surprising. I won't lie. I think my Okay. Digging with the Nurturing Peatland. Do we have a chance to pull this out? We might. The Tarmogoyf is now in a trade state with the Shinobi. They didn't have a land in the graveyard before. If they attack, I have to just take this, right? Sure, we're down to 4. Seems pretty reasonable to me. If I get untap here, I drew a Fatal Push. Like, we might just have a chance to pull this thing out. I'm going in with the team. Wow. I can't believe this. I will take it, though. What the heck? I actually don't really want these cards, but do I want to Thoughtseize them? No, I don't want to go to 2. I just want to play this Ninja of the Deep Hours for full retail. Pass the turn back. Look, if I was going to play a Thoughtseize this turn, I would have played the OG art Thoughtseize. Wouldn't have played that Thoughtseize. But look at this. Now we have double Fatal Push here. Might be able to seal this game somehow. I cannot believe my opponent did not double block our Fallen Shinobi. I understand the concern there, right? The concern is that if they'd use these brutalities just to drain me, I'd be dead by now. Yeah, you got it, friendo. I mean, the idea was that if we had instant speed interaction, they would have got blown out. I get it, but letting me... This wasn't any better for you, right? Like, come on. Make sure I did this right. I think I did. I mean, this should do it for our opponent, right? The thing is, Fallen Shinobi's a 5-drop, so Fatal Push doesn't touch it no matter what, even with Revolt, so... I think we might be able to seal this game, unless my opponent pulls out the old deal 4 damage, absorb this, I believe, something like that. Deal 4 damage to target creature or player, draw 4. Alright, so yeah, they can Fatal Push down our Ingenious Infiltrator, but not the Shinobi, and the Shinobi is the much scarier one. Let's see if we can find some sweet cards off the top of their deck. Nope, sure can't. I guess I just passed the turn back. Maybe I should have Nurturing Peat landed, but on their instep here, I believe I can 1, 2, 3, 4. I can activate the Castle Vantress and crack the Nurturing Peat land in the instep. The game is ended. We did it. We took it down. That match was... Wow, I thought we were dead, but I'm glad we got there. What a game. Ninjas, everybody, taking it down. What an awesome start. All right, everybody, here we go. More ninjas. This hand is a keep. I'm in. A bit slow. Obviously, we don't have one of our 8 1-drops, or 11 1-drops. We have a lot of 1-drops in this deck. But that said, it is pretty decent all around because, look at this. My opponent's going to go for the Goblin Guide. I get to see what we are going to reveal to it. Land? Oh, there's the 1-drop. This is fine, though. I can go Dismember it and then just hold up Spellstutter Sprite from now on. If my opponent's playing Burn or Goblins, they're going to have a lot of 1-drops that we can interact with. So, it might work out okay for us. Now, obviously, we took 5 this turn, right? It was a pretty good Goblin Guide, but we got it off the battlefield and being on the play here, I think, was a pretty big one for us. So, interesting. There's a Changeling Outcast on top. Then we shuffled. Then we drew a Changeling Outcast. Rift Bolt. Okay. This is perfect. Yeah, this is exactly what we want. My opponent playing 1-drops, so we get a Spellstutter Sprite land. We get to draw land. I mean, this is just the dream, right? We'll go get an island here. Oh, I should have got a swamp. I see. Misplay there, actually. Should have just gotten the swamp. I just looked at our hand, saw more blue cards than black cards in it. Just trying to go fast, you know, that's the thing. You're recording for video. You sometimes are more interested in just going quickly than you are just to keep the video rolling, you know, to keep it moving. Nobody wants to see you stare at your screen for 10 minutes, but sometimes you do stupid stuff like that and you just get the wrong thing. So we do get a little punished for it. All in all, I think it's probably going to be just fine, but that was a little bit of a punish. Although I don't think we would have got in for a point of damage here with the Changeling Outcast, but I had nothing I could have ninjutsu'd in with it. And just having the Changeling Outcast is really nice here when my opponent goes for the Searing Blaze that runs in a Spellstutter Sprite, because guess what? It's a ninja. It's also a fairy. It's a wizard. It's a merfolk, the best creature type in Modern. And it was enough to counter your Searing Blaze. So the second Searing Blaze, sure, you did it. But my opponent's burning so many resources on all of this right now. Meanwhile, we now are, we will now be Fallen Shinobi in them. Do I have another swamp I can grab? I do. Take 5, please. What do I get? Okay. 2 cards I can't play. I don't know if we wanted our opponent to draw lands or not, frankly. They have 4... You know, we could lose this game solely for the fact that my opponent is on 2 mana. And they might be able to string enough burn spells together. I mean, they could have 4 lightning bolts in their hand, and we're at 12, you know? We'll see. Now, the problem for them is that Fallen Shinobi, unlike the rest of our deck, Fallen Shinobi just hits like a truck, right? It's a 5-4, okay? They're dead in 2 turns. And this game is honestly just over. So we got there. We get to hit them here. Next turn, we have double Spellstutter Sprite, Leak plus Sprite. Just a clinic, basically, in how you destroy a red deck. Can I use any mana? Oh, I don't have to do anything. Doesn't even matter. This game's over. Fallen Shinobi is an insane Magic card. Alright, this is what the Collective Brutalities are for. Let's do it. Problem is, the rest... I mean, look, that game looked great for us, right? I don't actually know what the red matchup is like. I mean, we just had a great draw, but this matchup could actually be a little problematic. I mean, you look at our sideboard, not all of it is really that good against the red deck, per se. So, yeah, we'll see what happens. Everyone's complimenting the deck this week, though. Opponent says spicy. When I was practicing, somebody said, nice deck. It is a cool deck. I agree. It's a sweet, sweet modern brew. I had played something like this back in the day for another content channel, but I had tried sort of a fairies focus build of a deck similar to this, sort of a fairies ninja deck, as opposed to a ninja deck. You know, this has fairies in it. Spellstutter Sprite's a great card, but this is a ninjas deck, not a fairies deck. No bitter blossoms, no fairy specific cards, that sort of thing, outside of just the one with the sprites. So this is straight ninjas in modern, and it is something to see. This is my kind of style. Sort of like playing Mono Blue Devotion and Pioneer, Mono Blue Devotion back in the old days of Standard. It's just it's a fun one. And Fallen Shinobi, very few things in Magic. Like, if you think about the things that are good in Magic and sort of things that make for a fun card, I would say that you need a little bit of randomness. You know, variance is good in some amount of doses, maybe not even small, just not huge doses of variance. Casting your opponent's cards, also a pretty enjoyable thing to do. So Fallen Shinobi, it's a 5/4 ninjutsu score. You put it all together. It's just a very fun way to play Magic. And look at this, we're getting value off the Goblin Guy this time around. Now, not actually that good for us. We're gonna have to discard to hand size here, but you know, I guess fortunately we have plenty to discard. That extra Polluted Delta doing us probably no good. Let's see what the play is here. Swift Spear into Bolt of some kind. Yep, Lava Spike. Well, we are getting beat down this game. That's for sure. Let's see what we reveal to Goblin Guide. Another land, okay. Swift Spear or Guide? Might be the Swift Spear. Not only can it get bigger in the damage department, and if we end up trying to block or something, it gets big on that end too. All right, there's a Changeling Outcast. That card everybody cannot block. But I think the play is going to be this. I think the play is to play the Changeling Outcast and hope that we can Mist-Syndicate Naga next turn. I mean, the fact of the matter is we're playing against Modern Burn. The games are always going to be close. They're going to untap. They're going to deal us a bunch of damage. What we have to hope is that it's 5 damage, right? We go down to 8, Goblin Guide plus something. And then next turn, we have Changeling Outcast. It gets in there. We ninjutsu the Mist-Syndicate Naga, creating an untapped token that can block. You know, that's sort of our route to victory here. And I'm not above pulling the trigger on Force of Negation right now, exiling Brazen Borrower if my opponent does something I care about. We're about to draw a Fatal Push, so that's also very nice. That makes me honestly even more likely to pull the trigger on the Force. Oh, well, certainly against that we will be. Oh, and it went straight to my opponent's instep? That's good for me. Oop, almost went to combat without playing my land there. That would have been pretty disastrous. Well, that was a very, very, very clutch Force of Negation right there. This is, now it's starting to be a little problematic for our opponent, double Mist-Syndicate Naga. Now, I mean, look, I'm going to throw one of them in front of the Goblin Guide. A burn spell takes out another one. This might not get there, but it does really start to tax their resources in a strong way. So yeah, we'll see what happens. They're going to Helix the tapped one. Sure. Let's see what Goblin Guide shows us. Oh, wow. Goblin Guide to block, huh? I gotta say, friendo, that's not where you want to be. I'd scoop too. You knew that Fatal Push was coming. Fatal Push, taking out the Goblin guy. That means we get another copy of Mist-Syndicate Naga. GG, everybody. Ninjas just crushing burn in 2 quick ones. That's how you draw it up right there. This deck is killing it. I like it. Let's keep going. All right, trying to pick up the 3-0 here with the Ninjas, and this hand is pretty decent for trying to do that. I mean, we've got some coverage here against a lot of different strategies our opponent could have, and Ingenious Infiltrator there was huge. So there's a lot to talk about. If our opponent, we're seeing Flooded Strand, I don't know what that means, but let's say it's a control deck. I can talk about how this deck interacts against control decks. Well, the thing about Ninjutsu is it's an ability. It's not a cast. You don't have to cast these cards. They go into play as an ability. That means your opponent cannot counterspell them. They're not... Are they going to path this? Sure. Man. Yeah, your opponent can't stop you from ninjutsuing creatures into play. They can answer them once they're there. They can counter them when you try to play the enablers, so on and so forth. But they can't... I can't say I ninjutsu and they say I counter. It doesn't work like that unless you can counter abilities. So against a control deck, there's a lot of just hidden power just based on the way our deck kind of functions. It's a nice place to be. And again, I have no idea what my opponent's up to here, but it is not often that pathing your opponent on turn 1 works out in your favor. I mean, look, our opponent just, by virtue of doing that, we now have Spellstutter Sprite open for whatever they do. Might not catch it, but it might, right? It's a free extra card here. Well, let's see what the big 3-mana play is, though. It might be a Teferi or something we care about. Yeah, Teferi here, pretty decent. And I think I do have to just... Counterspell's not very good against Teferis, so let's go ahead and play the Spellstutter Sprite. They plus this thing, I might leave it in... I don't know. This is kind of hard. Teferi is one of the better cards against us because I can draw a bunch of cards by putting this Ingenious Infiltrator into play, but... right on time, right? I still think it's probably just correct to ignore the Teferi. Put this thing in, pick this thing up, draw 2 cards. I mean, yeah, Teferi's great, but cards are not going to be a problem for us this game. Now, leveraging those cards in productive ways might be against a Teferi. And keep in mind that Force of Negation came a little late here. Not much we can do with it, but I'm most worried about our opponent just sort of playing Wraths. If they just go Wrath into big Teferi or something, we're going to die no matter how many cards we have. Our deck is just not set up to deal with that. So we'll see. That said, we really do force our opponent to have it, and they don't have a second white source at this point. So, actual Wrath of God, Day of Judgment, Settle the Wreckage, those sort of answer cards you might expect, at least at the moment, are off the table. My opponent actually going block mode or bounce mode here with Teferi on our Ingenious Infiltrator, leaving us with enough power to get Teferi. This is probably one of the better outcomes for us. I think they're digging for lands. I think it's probably pretty clearly what's happening here, but missing it, missing that land drop there was frankly kind of disastrous for them. Oro's great, but now I get to poke Teferi to death. My Force of Negation will be live again. My Spellstutter Sprite will be live. My opponent will just be in a lot of trouble. And the reason I kept this mana open, by the way, was to not overextend into a Wrath. If we can just untap. Well, actually, Force of Negation you can only play for free on your opponent's turn, right? Yes. All right, well, let's get to combat and try to take out Teferi. We take out Teferi, we're in business, basically, if this attack goes through. Unfortunate thing for them. Oh, okay, there you go. I think I'm going to pass the turn here because I could actually go for the hard cast Force of Negation if I wanted, and still play a Spectral Sailor at the end of the turn. Maybe it's better to play the Outcast and still keep that lineup. I'm not sure. Here comes the Ice Fang Coddle. I think I'm fine with this. And I could have Spellstutter Sprited it, but it just doesn't seem like a card we really need to Spellstutter Sprite. They get a cycle with it, but it's not really changing the way this board is going. What we care about now is whatever they're following up with. 4 mana. 4. I don't even know what... It was Bant Snow, I guess we're playing against. Are they escaping their Uro? Yep. It costs 3. Friend, I have 3 fairies. I have bad news for you. I have some real bad news for you. GG. That's pretty sick. All right, let's see what they want to do now. If they shock this in, they don't. Okay, so they're just trying to play this value game, and it's all looking pretty okay for us, I gotta say. Let's go for the Sailor, then I'm just going to dismember the Ice Fang Quaddle and the Instep here. Untap, have a billion resources at our disposal. And see what happens. Is it a path? A path on our Spectral Sailor, huh? Yeah, I don't care. That's fine. In a different circumstance, maybe I would care. But as it stands now, I'm just going to ninjutsu in this Ingenious Infiltrator. It doesn't really matter. And how sick is it when your opponent's playing a bunch of cheap cards like Ice Fang Quaddle and Path of Exile to just keep picking up Spellstutter Sprite like this? I mean, come on. It's just dirty. We had to draw 2 cards here. And Brazen Borrower, I like. I have plenty of cards exiled at this point, so I'm just going to go ahead and play the Faerie Seer, I think. It also means we can counter something for 4 again. And I get a bottom both of those, so we get some sweet value off of it at the same time. We can also, depending on what our opponent plays, let it resolve and play the Petty Theft instead, so off of the Brazen Borrower. So really, really difficult situation for our opponent here. Missing that 4th land drop was just so critical. If they had it with that Teferi in play, this could have been a completely different ball game, but just running these Uros out to get countered by Spellstutter Sprites is not really where you want to be. We did it. On to game 2 against Bant Snow. I don't know what to... I'm gonna be honest, I haven't played much against this deck. Thoughtseize seem real good, though. This 100% seems like a game where we can slow down quite a bit. Fatal Pushes are medium. I'm going to give this a shot. I don't know about this line. The Collective Brutality is almost reasonable as well. It's not great. I don't know. I don't know if we want the other Force. I'm not super familiar. The Bant deck is basically just a value deck. It's just chock full of value creatures. Uro is a ridiculously powerful Magic card. So I don't really know what they're up to, per se. I just know that Spellstutter Sprite is our best friend, and if we can make Game 2 look anything like Game 1, we're in shape. I think that, you know, Wraths plus Planeswalkers are probably how we lose, because outside of Fallen Shinobi, no creature in our deck has more than 3 power, right? And it's only the Mist-Syndicate Nagas, right? It's 2 power. We have 4 creatures in the deck with more than 2 power. So it can be hard to pressure down Planeswalkers. Like if your opponent just goes, you know, little Teferi on the play on turn 3 like they did there, they just take it up to 5 immediately, and it's like, well, I got 2 power that needs to deal damage to players. Not much we can do about it. That's a Teferi in that circumstance. But luckily for us, they were missing land drops in that game. Hopefully something similar happens. You know, I wonder if on the draw I do want this Force in here and cut like a Relic. I think maybe this might be better, actually. I'm just not super familiar with how many non-creature spells their deck plays. But I have to assume that after sideboarding, it will be more of them than it was before sideboarding. So Force of Negation probably works out pretty reasonably no matter what here, right? And And that's, I think, what I see people make the most mistake with this card is thinking you have to play it for free. You know, they think that because you see Legacy and you see Force of Will, and you're almost always playing Force of Will for free because it's just how Legacy works, right? That's how the format's very quick. That's how it goes. But in Modern, in a lot of matchups, just play Force of Negation as your Dissipate, right? Your Cancel. And it's a bad counter spell, but it's fine, right? It's non-creatures only, so like it's not perfect, but it's a perfectly reasonable 3-mana play, and you don't have to 2-for-1 yourself that way. So with our opponent, you know, rolling out with a bunch of Planeswalkers here, on the draw especially, I think having the Force of Negations is good. Now, the question is whether we want 2 or 3 of them. 3 means we're more likely to flood out. That is obviously kind of problematic, but exile Force to Force. It's not the end of the world, right? Not even sure what our opponent's up to with their sideboarding here. Going to time. Deep in the tank. Deep in the sideboarding tank, I guess. Uh-huh, I see. Or they're AFK. All right, I'm going to go ahead and stop the video. And if they return, I will start the video back up again. All right, so we have a plot twist. My opponent returned after timing out. And now we're playing a new match. So you know what? That's some bonus content, that first game right there. And we're going to play game 1 again. Just consider it a best of 4 set. Or maybe we'll win this one and say we're done here, right? All the same, I'm keeping this hand. This hand's great. Okay, so we got a Fatal Push. We've got a 1-drop. I mean, this is a 4-land hand. We're not super excited about those, but this is a pretty good one right here. We get to Faerie Seer to set up our draws. We get a Ninja the Deep Hours. Ooh, gross. Ninja the Deep Hours next turn. We can Fatal Push if they have a blocker. This hand's pretty okay. I mean, 2 lands on top is pretty bad, but consider how good Faerie Seer is. You just get to a bottom them. This card's nuts. It's a 1-drop. Should have been a Merfolk. All right, Arkham's Astrolabe. Let's see what you got. All right, well, let's go ahead and get on in there. We are certainly drawing the lands, so hopefully we don't find any more after this, but... Oops. I guess it's... I don't really know how... I'm going to be honest, I don't really know how unblocked works. I don't know if it counts as unblocked even in attack step, so, or if I have to make sure to go through to the blocker step there, but who cares? Ninja the Deep Hours is going to hit, and we're going to draw a card. I'm in. And then we get to reload with Faerie Seer to set up our draws again, so... Pretty nice all around. Double Faerie Seer even. All right, so let's see what my opponent is up to. We know they're playing Bant Snow based on that first game, so we'll see where things progress from here. Looks like they're just holding up. I have to assume it's going to be a whatever that thing is called, a Ice Fang Coatl. But you know what? It's fine with me. Not really a problem, honestly. We should still get a draw an extra card here. This hand, when this deck draws well, it looks good, right? I mean, look, we're on the play. You're drawing extra cards. You're countering stuff. You're killing stuff. I mean, the deck is just crazy good. Looks like our opponent might have switched decks here. Interesting. They're going for the Ambush Viper Snapcaster Mage play, huh? Not going to work out, friendo. Looks like they switched decks. I don't know. They fetched double islands. A little weird. Whatever. We will draw some more cards. An Ingenious Infiltrator, you say? I'm in. Well, let's see what this scry reveals before we decide whether or not we're going to scry again with the next one. It's a lot of lands, huh? I think I'm going to go ahead and just go for it. I don't really think I don't think we're going to get punished too rough, too hard here, especially in game 1. Don't need the Changeling Outcast. I will keep the Fallen Shinobi. So this thing works out fine. Next turn we can... put a Fallen Shinobi into play if we really want. We can also Ingenious Infiltrator and still have Dismember open. there's a lot of ways that everything here works out very well for us. Now, I guess my opponent just passing the turn back to us is one of the worst outcomes for us, but all that said, it's still perfectly fine because, look, Ninja the Deep Hours is in play. It's attacking. My opponent's going to feel the need to deal with that sort of regardless. But yeah, so all the same, I'll just pick up a Faerie Seer here with the Ingenious Infiltrator. The other cool part about Ninjutsu is that it removes it as part of the cost. You know, returning an unblocked creature, an untapped attacker to your hand, that's what you do as part of the cost. That can't be responded to. And look at this, we're going to draw 2 cards off the Ninja. And draw a billion cards right here, get a Force of Negation. Looks very good for us here. All right, that's a bunch. Well, I think that if some is good, more is better. Let's just play the Faerie Seer out again and scry some more. Why not? Beautiful. This is actually just exactly what I was looking for with Spellstutter Sprite because that was the only card I really wanted to find right there. So now we get to pass the turn back up with Dismember and Force of Negation. It seems pretty difficult for our opponent to climb out of that, and they're just not going to. All right, here we go, game 2. We're on the draw this time, but you know what? This hand looks pretty good in its own right now with we go Faerie Seer and a Spellstutter Sprite with removal spells. I think the only thing we're really concerned about here are probably Planeswalkers from our opponent. Always the Astrolabe. I gotta say, everybody, I'm not a fan of this card. Things that break the color wheel, they're just not good for Magic, right? This is as innocuous as you could possibly make a card. And yet it's still too good. Not too good in a power level sense. It's all over the place. It just makes things so easy. It's just a very free card. It's played in a lot of formats. I don't think it made the format better. How about that? Not too strong, not anything weird. It's not that much to say about it. It's just too ubiquitous. It's too easy. It's free. Free mana, free spells, free things. You have to gate stuff in Magic, or it's just not good. And Astrolabe is a completely fine card by itself, obviously, but a lot of the cards that it sort of enables, a lot of the decks and strategies it enables, not necessarily as healthy for the format as you might think. And it's just a silly little snow card, right? But, hey, it's good. All right, so our opponent passing the turn back here. Let's see what's up. I mean, I guess I'm going to go for the Ingenious Infiltrator. My opponent looks like they might have some pre-combat action here. Now, the problem for the... Well, okay. They don't, but... a couple different lines here. They might be asking to get blown out right now by going for some kind of Ice Fang Quaddle, so... They do have... It actually doesn't have Death Touch here. So, here's what I'm going to do. I guess we're about to find out whether I can ninjutsu this in. I cannot. Okay. In that case, I'm just going to Spellstutter Sprite it. It turns out you do have unblocked. Does it turns out mean that you have moved to blockers and your creature is no longer blocked? It doesn't simply mean that it's unblocked. That it has not yet been blocked, I guess. So that's good to know. I guess if that was technically the case, it wouldn't even have to be. It doesn't say. No, it says attacker. So yeah, there you go. Unblocked is different than not blocked, I guess. But sure. All in all. Ooh, Monastery Mentor. That's a neat one. Unfortunately for our opponent, they're just getting so blown out. They're just getting blown out with everything they do in this game, in this match. It's just, I almost feel bad about how their cards just do not line up against us. At all. And we'll get in here. We'll ninjutsu this thing in, pick up the Spellstutter Sprite, draw only one card here. This is a fairy, not a ninja. But you know what? It means the value train has begun rolling. You know, we've left this station. we're picking up speed. We're not there yet, but also, by the way, I now have Revolt, just because that's a thing that works, and now I just get to destroy the Monastery Mentor with the Fatal Push. I don't even have to burn the Dismember on it. And it's just everything is just coming up Corbin here. That was enough for our opponent. You know, it seems like an early scoop, but frankly, they were dead. So there you go, everybody. This deck was sick. Nice matches, nice matches. Great games. Thanks for watching.